I'm making some soap today colored with these Brazilian clays from Rainforest Chica. And right now I am mixing up the purple Brazilian clay. So I'm just taking like a teaspoon of each clay and I'm going to be mixing it in just a little bit of oil, which you'll see in a minute. And for the red clay, I had never used it before and I was pleasantly surprised with how dark it turned. So I had it sitting around for like over a year and I'm finally getting around to using it and I really like it. So this is the red Brazilian clay there. And again, I got that from Rainforest Chica. So this is a mixture of my base oils that I will soon be adding my lye mixture to, but I'm just using like a teaspoon of the oil into the clays just to kind of soak it a little bit. I'm just mixing it up, making sure the clumps are out. Now look how red that is. I was so impressed by that. And I was expecting it to be more of like an orangish reddish, but it stayed a pretty true red, like a kind of like a brick red, but very nice shade. And then the purple was also a very nice shade too. And then of course the black that I'm using is charcoal. So I've stick blended just until trace, and there's a light trace, and I'm pouring my white and setting that aside. I'm adding, and then I'm pouring to the rest of the colors just a little bit, and I'm mixing with a spoon. I'm not stick blending it because these are clays and they will tend to thicken up maybe slightly faster than if they're like herbs or botanicals or something. And this design does require a thin to medium trace, and so clays do tend to make it thicker. Like look how nice that red clay is. This I believe is the purple clay that I am mixing, and that turned a nice, it looked like a grayish purple, but once I cut the soap, it was a nice shade of purple. Now for the pouring of this soap, I'm just going to go layer by layer, pouring down the side, the edge of my mold, one color at a time, and I'm just alternating as desired between the colors. Now I generally try to make sure the color contrasts are different when they're up against each other, so I wouldn't put like a red next to a pink, or I try to make sure there's a nice little color contrast for a nicer design. So just keep your fluid your batter as fluid as possible. Give it a stir as needed to just keep it in that fluid state, and then I just pour as shown here. Now for this, it kind of got thicker towards the end of this batch, so I just kind of spooned it in lines just for like the last few little pours. And I'm just swirling the top just to have it look a little nicer and more appealing to the eye. And then I'm just going to let it sit for 24 hours. And this recipe was not my usual recipe. It was a custom request for somebody who had allergies to a particular oil. So it's not my usual recipe, and it's also not my usual size batch. I'm used to working in bigger batches where I gel everything. This is a smaller batch for me, and I did not gel it. I just let it sit at room temperature for 24 hours. And now we're going to go ahead and cut it. And this is the most important part for, okay, there's my loaf. And I just measured off. I'm going to be cutting that into 4 chunks. And then I'll show you what you need to do to make sure you're getting that thin line design. So I sliced down. Now if you're just cutting it like loaf wise into regular bars, this is what the design would look like that. So which is nice. So I'm just wiping off the gunk from the soap bars. If I had waited longer, I should have waited longer, but I really didn't. And maybe you can relate with the impatience of wanting to cut the soap before it's ready. So the loaf is into the 4 chunks, okay? So now we're going to take like this chunk right here, and that's the top side right there, and I'm just going to put it on its sides. And then I'm going to slice right down lengthwise right through that little chunk, and that's where the thin line design is going to be. Now the thinner the trace you have, the finer the lines you're going to get. My trace was medium to thick by the time I finished, so my lines, although they're nice, I'm going to be doing this method again, but I'm going to be doing it with my usual recipe and in a bigger loaf like what I'm used to. So I'll try to make a video for that one too that I'll show you.